guess who's making the rounds, folks? Guess who's making the rounds again? Our friend, the financial expert, the investment expert, Tony Robbins. That's right. Tony Robbins, the world's biggest charlatan, the world's biggest con man. Tony Robbins commercialized the whole industry of scammers. That's right. Tony Robbins was the first commercialized scam artist. And what I mean by commercialized is that he was the first guy to come out and reach a world platform. And of course, he learned this from all these old school scam artists that really never didn't embrace technology and didn't do what Tony did. Tony rented the networks, the late night network, after 1 o'clock a.m. He rented those spots. And of course, you know what the demographics are, people that are up 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., their situation, they're more desperate, less educated, and they're going to fall for this stuff. But, he learned from Jim Rohn and all these other con artists, Bob Prechter, all these, you can go into that whole industry and see for yourself what type of shenanigans have been going on for a very, very long time. And so Tony Robbins was the first of these guys, and he actually, and I talked about this many times, Tony Robbins began the current modern day industry of scammers. That's right. All these scammers out there on social media and YouTube, they know Tony Robbins. They've been to his events. They embrace this. This is where they're getting their ideas from. I talked about this many years ago. These young kids out there, they think it's all okay. Fake it till you make it, right? Life coach, right? So Tony Robbins, and of course, I talked about, you can go on the website. I exposed this con man many years ago when he came out in 2010, and he warned everyone about the market's too high. You might want to consider getting out of the market. Not too far from the bottom of the financial crisis. That's right. Tony Robbins was out there advising people. And of course, he wants to get into the financial industry. He has no background, has nothing. He's a scammer. He's a fraudster. He's a pure fraud. Oh, well, he's worth, he stole the money through mind games and scams. And he invests the money in bullshit. That's right. Tony Robbins is now selling vitamins. Folks, anybody selling nutritional supplements is a scammer. Write that down. The nutritional supplements industry is a scam industry. I've been talking about this for many years. The nutritional supplements, 95% of the time, maybe even higher, are either placebos or they're shit and dangerous. I'm not going to get into that right now. You can just take a look. Alex Jones, all his money is from what? Nutritional supplements. Joe Rogan, another scam artist, nutritional supplements. Go down the list, folks. Anyway, obviously, Tony Robbins is paying Yahoo Finance and other criminal media firms to promote him and to promote his new book. He's got a new book coming out here.
Investors continue to make a lot of mistakes when putting money to work. We caught up with life and business expert Tony Robbins.
Life and business expert. So what's a life expert? Well, what the fuck is a life expert? Business expert? No, he's not. He's a scammer. So you hear that? Brian Sozzi, you're a scumbag. You're a piece of trash. How much were you paid, buddy, to promote this fraud? So investors continue to make mistakes. They do? What mistakes are they making? I don't know. The market's at all-time highs. Stocks are flying. What mistakes? The only mistakes investors are making is they're tuning into the media. That's the only mistakes they're making. But nonetheless, investors are making mistakes. So what do? We bring Tony Robbins to help you. Okay.
To see how you can become a better investor.
Better investor.
How does Tony Robbins spot a good potential
Look
investment and avoid mistakes?
I've done it.
And you all know, of course, his name is not Robbins. It's Mahavik or something like that. He's in the same group as guys like, Peter Schiff and Harry Dent and Doug Casey. He's in that little cabal. You all understand what I'm talking about. I'm not going to get into this whole thing.
My goal is to bring that to the general population.
Yeah. So Tony Robbins, this guy's a fraud. You all know he's a fraud, right?
Do you have an iPhone?
I do have an iPhone.
Okay. Most people do, right? I said, how many have iPhone? I'll raise their hand. I said, well, I've had iPhone since the beginning. I bought a new iPhone each year. So I sat down and figured out what the dollar amount was. I've spent $20,600 on iPhones since 2007. If you would have bought the stock at this, you put that amount of money of what the phone was each year, because I looked it up, and the amount of stock you get, the stock today is worth $206,000.
What's the point? What's the point? Means nothing. I own Apple stock. I've never bought an iPhone. I mean, this guy's an idiot. And also, why would you spend $20,000 on Apple stock in 2007? Why would you do that thinking about iPhone? Nobody knew the iPhone was going to be a huge hit in 2007. This guy's an idiot. He's a con man. He says, we teach investors to be consumers, not owners. Okay. Interesting, because I want to show you this little video here. Because Tony Robbins back in the 80s was pitching credit cards. That's right. Talk about a hypocrite. This is a scam artist who's telling people to get credit cards. He's showing you how to get credit cards, teaching people how to be consumers and not owners.
Do you want to establish good credit? Now you can, thanks to this exciting new program from Tony Robbins.
Hi, I'm Tony Robbins. I'm the author of the national best-selling book, Unlimited Power. For over 10 years now, I've helped over 1 million people to take control of their life, mentally, emotionally, physically, and financially. And so many people I meet have pain in the area of credit. If you're one of the 40 million Americans who really needs a Visa card, we have a solution that's guaranteed. I've created the easiest, most affordable way to guarantee.
What a scam artist.
And so here we have an example of Tony Robbins using a Harry Dent's simpleton bullshit to tell you how to predict what's going to happen in the economy, looking at demographics. And I mentioned this before, I can't recall in terms of Harry Dent. Harry Dent is a numbskull.
Anyway, this video, you guys can check it on the website. So let's before we continue, let's just go ahead now and
called Magnificent Seven. People are just buying these 7 stocks, Microsoft, Nvidia, you name it, almost blindly. Tony, what is it about human psychology that is making people buy these 7 stocks and not the other 493? And then what's the downside risk of that?
Well, I think you and I both know I'm concerned about it as well. But everyone's betting on AI, which is probably a decent bet. The NVIDIAs of the world are probably doing well. I don't know what the right valuations are. I wouldn't try to make those decisions myself. But I think when things get that concentrated, think about it. There used to be 8,000 stocks. Now 3,300 on the NASDAQ. I think it's 27.
so listen carefully what he says, folks. Listen.
That's not a lot of stocks, but there's 250,000 companies that are from 100 million to 3 billion that private equity can step into.
If you own these 7 stocks and you're sitting on these gains, how do you just pull yourself out of this vortex? You have to just say, stop. Okay, they're overvalued. I got to get out. But how do you do that psychologically?
Well, everyone's different. Right? Everyone's different, so I can't tell you one way to do it. But I don't know that I'm not the person to evaluate those. I would just say diversification, we all heard it a million times, but Ray's version of it to me is the most exciting. I remember
Ray Dalio is a con man, by the way. I've mentioned that before. It's a con man. He was kicked out of the firm that he founded, Bridgewater. He was shown the exit door several years ago, and he's been telling everyone he's introduced as the guy that's headed Bridgewater. He was kicked out, shown the exit door because his returns sucked. Meanwhile, most of the fund was invested in the S&P 500. This guy is a con man, and you can tell when he's teaming up with Tony Robbins. Why is he teaming up with Tony Robbins? Nobody of any credibility is going to do that. Same thing with Mark Benioff. When someone teams up with Tony Robbins, Bill Clinton, these guys are dirty, stinking rats.
Taught me this, and I was looking to find where can I find these uncorrelated investments. I would say instead of trying to evaluate that, create the diversification for yourself so you reduce your risk by 80%. And I think you can get that when you broaden the base of what you can invest in instead of getting locked into it's just stocks and bonds, it's just this public market or just the S&P.
So you hear that, folks? So Tony Robbins, first of all, I tell you to diversify. And diversify in terms of what type of investments you can get into, not just stocks and bonds, right? So you know what? Can you tell what's going to happen here? His little book, stupid book, he's going to be pitching in investments. If you all don't know the recent history of Tony Robbins, of course, he doesn't write anything. He's like Robert Kiyosaki. These guys are illiterate. They can't write anything. They pay ghostwriters. 99% of people that are high profile, they hire ghostwriters. That's a fact. You can write it down, guaranteed. And you can imagine a guy like Tony Robbins, uneducated, he didn't write anything. So he supposedly wrote a couple of books, ghostwrote a couple of books a few years ago. Those books, actually, I think one of them was he tried to get people to annuities. He was involved in the annuity company, and he was telling people how good annuities were. And annuities are pretty much a scam for many reasons. I'm not going to get into it, but mainly the high fees, lack of transparency, many other things. And so what do you think this new book is? He's going to be pushing probably, I would say, alternative investments. Did you notice he talked about private equity? So there's something going on there. Ray Dalio has got something going on with, I don't know where he comes in, but this might be it, right? A way to push Ray Dalio. Ray Dalio is an obvious con man, bullshit artist. Tony Robbins, the king of con men, the king of fraudsters. And so he's telling you, and by the way, diversification, hey, Tony, hey, dipshit, nobody needs to hear your stupid, uneducated mouth. They can just buy the S&P 500. That's plenty diversified. Why doesn't he tell you that? Because he wants to tell you that he's got the solutions. Buy his book, and he's going to swindle people. I can guarantee you, somebody get a hold of the stupid book and go through it, and you'll see for yourself. Just like the other book that he allegedly wrote, which got people into annuities, so on and so forth. You can go ahead. The encouraging thing, though, is that I guess the demographics are, you've got boomers. You can read the comments, and it's great that people are seeing that they know he's a con man. So you can just read these comments. It's great. This is the encouraging thing. Yeah. See, look, this guy remembers he was in 2002 telling everyone to get out of the stock market. You just saw a great example of confirmed evidence that you have people that paid the media for appearances. Okay. And I mentioned before, Tim Sykes, the day trading penny stock lying fraudster scam artist who couldn't trade his way out of a corner. This guy's been paying the media for a long time. He would typically go towards the most vulnerable, most desperate losers like Larry King towards the end of his life. No one watched this stupid show anymore. What's his name? Steve Harvey, so on and so forth. And these, people think that if they're in the media, they're credible. This is the problem. This is the biggest mistake people make. Folks, now I'm not going to say 100% because there's always exceptions, and they make sure to have some credible people there. So you can't always say that that the media is not credible. They don't have any credible people. You're better off assuming that nobody in the media is credible. If they're in the media, they're not credible. That's the lesson to learn. That's the way it goes, because 99.9% of the people promoted in the media are not experts. They're scammers or they're losers. And once again, this is done to create the dumb money. You've got also payments by publishers, PR firms that go to the media to promote these people. And you're seeing a lot more of this lately. In fact, you're seeing these fringe websites do this a lot more. Robert Kiyosaki, you wonder why his articles keep getting posted all over the place. That's why.
There are two fundamental reforms that we need to get adequate capital and two, to get far higher levels of enforcement of fraud statutes. Existing ones, I'm not even talking about new ones. Things were being done which were certainly illegal and clearly criminal in certain cases, which, I mean, fraud is a fact. Fraud creates very considerable instability in competitive markets. If you cannot trust your counterparties, it won't work. And indeed, we saw that it didn't.
So things went very well, and then the economy collapses, and so all of a sudden people are saying, well, it was Alan Greenspan's fault because he should have anticipated this. Did you think that was fair?
Nobody forecast the 2008 crisis. One of the things I put in the second book I wrote was how the IMF missed it, the Federal Reserve missed it. You go down a whole series of the major forecasting.
Well, everybody got it wrong, let's say.
You can't have a crisis of that nature that is not a surprise. Nobody forecast the 2008 crisis. One of the things I put in the second book I wrote was how the IMF missed it, the Federal Reserve missed it. You go down a whole series of the major forecasting.
Well, everybody got it wrong, let's say.
You can't have a crisis of that nature that is not a surprise. Nobody forecast the 2008 crisis. Nobody forecast the 2008 crisis. Nobody forecast the 2008 crisis. There are two fundamental reforms that we need to get adequate capital and two, to get far higher levels of enforcement of fraud statutes. Existing ones, I'm not even talking about new ones. Things were being done which were certainly illegal and clearly criminal in certain cases, which, I mean, fraud is a fact. Fraud creates very considerable instability in competitive markets. If you cannot trust your counterparties, it won't work. And indeed, we saw that it didn't. Certainly illegal and clearly criminal in certain cases, which, I mean, fraud is a fact. Fraud creates very considerable instability in competitive markets. If you cannot trust your counterparties, it won't work. And indeed, we saw that it didn't. Certainly illegal and clearly criminal in certain cases, which, I mean, fraud is a fact. Fraud creates very considerable instability in competitive markets. If you cannot trust your counterparties, it won't work. And indeed, we saw that it didn't. There are two fundamental reforms that we need to get adequate capital and two, to get far higher levels of enforcement of fraud statutes. Existing ones, I'm not even talking about new ones. Things were being done which were certainly illegal and clearly criminal in certain cases, which, I mean, fraud is a fact. Fraud creates very considerable instability in competitive markets. If you cannot trust your counterparties, it won't work. And indeed, we saw that it didn't. Nobody forecast the 2008 crisis. Things were being done which were certainly illegal and clearly criminal in certain cases, which nobody forecast the 2008 crisis. 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 Nobody forecast the 2008 crisis.
In terms of getting back as an investor, if it's coming down to here, almost irrespective of what's going on, I have to believe. If I have to make a call in advance, and of course I can change depending on what happens, but I have to believe this is where you want to start doing that 18, 17, around there. Their earnings report is a complete game changer, at least for quite a while. Bottom line, NVIDIA now is going to enter the realm of Tesla, Apple, and all these other big, I mean, listen, NVIDIA can come down to 150, come down to $100. If you don't think it's possible, then you don't understand how the market works. I mean, listen, NVIDIA can come down to 150, come down to $100. If you don't think it's possible, then you don't understand how the market works.
And we're short NVIDIA, it's a loser. 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 And we're short NVIDIA, it's a loser.
Their earnings report is a complete game changer, at least for quite a while. Bottom line, NVIDIA now is going to enter the realm of Tesla, Apple, and all these other big,
And we're short NVIDIA, it's a loser. And we're short NVIDIA, it's a loser.
I mean, listen, NVIDIA can come down to 150, come down to $100. If you don't think it's possible, then you don't understand how the market works. I mean, listen, NVIDIA can come down to 150, come down to $100. If you don't think it's possible, then you don't understand how the market works.
And we're short NVIDIA, it's a loser.